Hey everyone, Au5 here. I think EDM could use more cowbell.
Fellas, you're gonna want that cowbell.
The cowbell has been underappreciated and underutilized for way too long. Since the beginning of time, we've been considering using the cowbell as just a percussive element. The cowbell may be one of the most versatile sounds in electronic music production. I'm going to show you how to take the infamous cowbell and turn it into something like this. All of the sounds that I make in this video will be available in the description as a free sample pack. And if you like this tutorial and want to learn even crazier sound design techniques in addition to arrangement, composition, mixing, and mastering, then I highly recommend you check out my Cryptochrome walkthrough. It is a full course in collaboration with Doll Nation of my song Cryptochrome, released on Chime's label Rushdown. Not only do I go through every sound and strategy and technique, it also includes a sample pack and the full Cryptochrome project file. So be sure to check the link in the description to download the free sample pack and check out the Cryptochrome walkthrough. With that being said, let's get into today's tutorial. I have a bunch of cowbells here. Let's use this 707 cowbell. I think we can make a good kick out of this. So first thing I'm going to do is use a pitch envelope. Doesn't need to be so bright, but I want to get that transient in there. So I'm going to use an envelope on the filter. And let's pitch it down with a frequency shifter. It's knocking at around 80 hertz below. Let's use some EQ. Let's use some multiband compression. Let's use some EQ3 to phase disperse this. You just stack EQ3s, very much like a dispersion effect. Honestly, that's not too bad. So that's a pretty good kick just for a cowbell. Shorten it up a little bit. Let's check the waveform. I think we can push this a little bit harder. Let's use analog clip. And I'm gonna add a little bit more of these mids in here that are getting lost. So we got a kick. Now let's try to make a snare. Let's use some reverb. Let's use another frequency shifter. Cut out the lows. Throw an erosion on there. Let's use some EQ and compression. And then a glue compressor to really make it snap. And let's use a bit more EQ, just shape it up. Maybe let's use some EQ3 to disperse the snare. And then can we make a hi-hat? Let's use multiple samples. I'm going to create an instrument rack. I'm going to use these 4 samples. Assign them to all different velocities. Now I have 4 different hi-hat samples that I can use. But that doesn't sound very good. Let's use an erosion and an EQ, a little bit of reverb, maybe some overdrive. Let's use a frequency shifter. So let's make some instruments. I'm going to use Vital. Vital is a free wavetable synth. You can enable the sampler, toss in any sample you want. You just play it. I'm going to disable loop and enable key track. Add a sine wave layer to this. I'm going to use envelope 2 to modulate the level of the sine wave. And if I give it a little bit of an attack and let it decay, and then add some reverb, a little bit of compression, and then tune this just right. You can get some really nice bell sounds with this. You can swap out cowbells for different timbres. Add a little bit of chorus. I can high pass this sample and key track it just so I get the upper harmonics. Enable a sidechain trigger. Now let's see what else we could do. You can take any sample and just drag it into the wavetable. You can just play it as a wavetable. Now you can also go into here and change the window size to something larger or smaller. You can also use the vocode mode to preserve the formant of it and also be able to transpose it. So if I use LFO to modulate this, and let's set this to legato. add a sine wave sub to this. I'm gonna set this to direct out. I could do this again too. Let's use a different cowbell sample, throw this in a different oscillator, do this in an opposing direction. Or use a different LFO speed. Or I can use the formant scale. We could also do something like a sync lead. Let's try it with an 808. Low code sounds nice. Let's stick to that. Let's use some distortion and compression and some reverb. So this cowbell sound, this 808 cowbell, has a really nice timbre, which is what I'm looking for. Add some delay to this. Let's make these dotted eighth notes, do tempo dotted. EQ this bass a little bit more. See if we can make a growl. We need some kind of complex wavetable that has movement, and a cowbell doesn't really have that much movement. If we combine a bunch of cowbells together, then we can get some movement. Create a drum rack, and then I'm going to throw a bunch of these cowbells in the drum rack. I'm just going to have all these notes played. If I use an arpeggiator, make it really fast, I can have all the cowbells being played at once. I'm gonna set these to gate mode, and then copy the value to siblings. So now they all cut off when each one starts. And let's just set this to random. Now I have this cacophony of cowbell. What we could do is calculate the actual rate that these cowbells trigger. To do that, we need to convert milliseconds into samples. So I have this DSP conversion table. 20 milliseconds is 882 samples. What that means is I can freeze this, and then in the Vital, now I can drag that into the wavetable editor, and then I can use that same value, 882 samples for the window size. If I set the blend style to file blend, each one of these frames is technically a different part of the wavetable. And if I constrain the end of this sample, so now I have all this nice movement in the wavetable from all the different samples of the cowbells. Use an LFO to sweep through these. Let's use a sine sub. I can use bandpass filter. Let's use the digital 24 dB per octave. And then use the multiband compressor. Set this to direct out. We can use some EQ. And if you can constrain the modulation in the wavetable at just the right place, you get a pretty decent sounding growl. Use another filter, phaser. Put a little bit of movement on those mid-ranges. Use the filter again, but this time I'm going to use the comb. I'm going to use low high flange plus, and then key track that. I can also use an LFO or an envelope to transpose it. Let's use the chorus to widen it up a bit. Some EQ to just brighten it back up. I think it needs another bass. Let's just throw this in a sampler. Just gonna use the kilohertz resonator. All I'm doing is just like creating this really fast extreme pitch envelope. Let's use a hybrid reverb in convolution mode, and let's see what it sounds like if we just throw a cowbell into the reverb. Let's do this in serial so we can get some reverb. And lastly, let's see if we could make some kind of cymbal, like some kind of crash. Let's use one of these reverberant ones. Reverb. Pitch this up. Multi-band compressor, some EQ, cut out the lows. Maybe a little bit of erosion. And then I'm going to use a glue compressor to gently sidechain that against the drum rack. Let's try a different cowbell. Let's use more noise erosion. Maybe a bit of an overdrive. Let's see. I'll say that sounds kind of like a nice ride or hi-hat. You can make pretty much anything with the cowbell. I just want to remind you that you can grab the free sample pack in the description. And there's also a link in the description to the Cryptochrome walkthrough where you can learn all of my tips, tricks, secrets, and my entire process in creating my song Cryptochrome. Make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more content. And let me know in the comments if you have any other ideas for tutorials that you'd like to see from me. With that being said, I'll see you next time. Peace.